and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk, where we, bring in an issue and talk about it and give our progressive take. I'm Greg, and this is
Thomas.
yes. Josie is out sick this week, so she'll be coming back next week. So yeah. All right. This week we are going to be focusing on universal basic income. We're going to talk about what it is, why it's important, give our opinions on it, and all that jazz. We first want to show you a clip about it. It's by In a Nutshell. It talks about what UBI is. I think it would be really beneficial for y'all to watch it. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you that clip and then come back and talk about it. All right, let's do that.
What if the state covered your cost of living? Would you still go to work? Go back to school? Not work at all? What would you do? This concept is called a Universal Basic Income, or UBI, and it's nothing less than the most ambitious social policy of our times. In 2017, basic income is gaining momentum around the world. First trials are ongoing or on their way, and a growing number of countries are considering UBI as an alternative to welfare. How would it work, and what are the key arguments for and against? Right now, people can't really agree what universal basic income is or should be. Some want to use it to eliminate welfare and cut bureaucracy. Others want it as a free extra for existing programs, or even want it to be so high that work itself becomes optional. For this video, we'll talk mostly about the minimum basic income, enough money to be above the poverty line. In the US, this means about $1,000 a month or $12,000 a year. The money would not be taxed, and you could do whatever you wanted with it. In this scenario, UBI is a way of transferring the wealth of a society while still keeping the free market intact. But if we hand out free money, will people just spend it on booze and stop working? A 2013 study by the World Bank specifically examined if poor people waste their handouts on tobacco and alcohol if they receive it in the form of cash. The clear answer: no, they don't. The opposite is true. Other studies have shown that the richer you are, the more drugs and alcohol you consume. The lazy and drunk poor person is a stereotype rather than reality. What about laziness? Universal basic income test runs done in Canada in the 1970s showed that around 1% of the recipients stopped working, mostly to take care of their kids. On average, people reduced their working hours by less than 10%. The extra time was used to achieve goals like going back to school or looking for better jobs. But if laziness and drugs are not a huge deal, why doesn't our current welfare state solve poverty? Welfare or unemployment programs often come with a lot of strings attached, like taking part in courses, applying to a certain number of jobs a month, or accepting any kind of job offer, no matter if it's a good fit or what it pays. Besides the loss of personal freedom, these conditions are often a huge waste of time and only serve to make the unemployment statistics seem less bad. Often your time would be much better spent looking for the right job, continuing education, or starting a business. Another unwanted side effect of many welfare programs is that they trap people in poverty and promote passive behavior. Imagine a benefit of $1,000 each month. In a lot of programs, if you earn a single dollar extra, the whole thing is taken away. If you take a job that's paying $1,200, you might not only lose your benefits, but because of your taxes and other costs like transportation, you might end up having less money than before. So if you actively try to better your situation and your total income is not improving or even shrinking, welfare can create a ceiling that traps people in poverty and rewards passive behavior. A basic income can never be cut, and therefore getting a job and additional income will always make your financial situation better. Work is always rewarded. Instead of a ceiling, it creates a floor from which people can lift themselves up. But even if UBI is the better model, is it economically feasible? What about inflation? Won't prices just rise, making everything just like it was before? Since the money is not being created by magic or printers, it needs to be transferred from somewhere. It's more of a shift of funds than the creation of new ones. Hence, no inflation. Okay, but how do we pay for it? There's no right answer here because the world is too diverse. How well off a country is, what the local values are. Are things like high taxes or cutting the defense budget politically acceptable or not? How much welfare state is already in place, and is it effective? Each country has its own individual path to a UBI. The easiest way to pay for a UBI is to end all welfare and use the free funds to finance it. Not only would this make a number of government agencies disappear, which in itself saves money, it would also eliminate a lot of bureaucracy. On the other hand, cutting them could leave many people worse off than before. If the goal is to have a foundation for everybody, there still need to be programs of some sort because, just like countries, people are not the same. The second way, higher taxes, especially for the very wealthy. In the US, for example, there's been a lot of economic growth, but most of the benefits from it have gone to the richest few percent. The wealth gap is rapidly widening, and many argue that it might be time to distribute the spoils more evenly to preserve the social peace. There could be taxes on financial transactions, capital, land value, carbon, or even robots. But UBI is not necessarily expensive. According to a recent study, a UBI of $1,000 per month in the US could actually grow the GDP by 12% over 8 years because it would enable poor people to spend more and increase overall demand. What about the people who do the dirty work? Who will work in the fields, crawl through sewers, or lift pianos? If you don't need to for survival, will people still do hard, boring, and unfulfilling labor? UBI might give them enough leverage to demand better pay and working conditions. A study calculated that every extra dollar going to wage earners would add about $1.21 to the national economy, while every extra dollar going to high-income Americans would add only 39 cents. There would still be very rich and poor people, but we could eliminate fear, suffering, and existential panic for a significant part of the population. Making poor citizens better off could be a smart economic tactic.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and break down, what y'all just watched. Also, if you're wondering why I have grass around me, is because my room's a little messy. Yeah. Also, just think of, the movie A Bug's Life, always remember that movie is a warning. So maybe go watch it again and again and again. Oh, God damn it, little cat. I guess we're getting a little visit here. This is my cat, little cat. All right, now go away. Bye-bye. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and break down that video that we just watched. First of all, it had some really good points. I am personally further left than what the video presented, as I believe you are too. Also, you're gonna hear a lot of British voices. I feel like I'm in an episode of The Crown. You got this one here and the narrator of the video. But anyway, I'm just being silly. But anyway, yeah. So I really agree with the point of how I see UBI personally. I can see it being a way of eliminating a welfare system of welfare programs. However, if we're going to do that, I think it needs to be way more than $1,000. I believe maybe close to $2,000 a month. If we're going to remove the welfare programs of, like, let's say Medicare for all or free education or whatnot, if you want to remove the programs but still have the same thing, so like guaranteed healthcare, then the UBI has to be way more than $1,000. That's my opinion. It does $1,000 UBI would not cover the cost of healthcare or education or the cost of even living. For me personally, it would $1,000. That'd be fine. I would only have to work I would actually be safe with just having a part-time job and, with the 1,000. But that's just my take on UBI. But Thomas, I wanted to go ahead and give you the floor and give your thoughts on UBI.
Yeah, I think the one thing you can say about UBI, even though I I also believe I think it's a partial solution to the problem. But what I think it does do is it normalizes the idea that people deserve like a good basic standing of living, or like the floor is above the bottom. I think that inherently the idea in general just it normalizes the fact that no, actually, you know what, if we're going to live in this this moneyed society, the floor should not be zero, and that everyone should start at least at some sort of level that doesn't mean extreme dire poverty. um, that being said, I think uh, you know, there's a lot of issues that could come from UBI. Like, if we introduce UBI and we don't solve the issue of predatory landlords, for example, I can just see, I could just see it where landlords would set their rent price at the UBI price, like, and effectively just swallow all that money up that is meant for people. Um,
UBI
um,
is supposed to be the bare minimum. And what I really liked, what the point that the video made was, yeah, there's still going to be poor people and rich people, but there's not the anxiety where it comes from it. And it also brought up the fact that if you are looking for work, you have a stable income. Or it's really good when you're also looking for housing
yeah,
and you're out of work, because I've, personally have been in that situation, and they're like, well, you don't make enough money, so we're not going to rent to you, even though I've never missed a rent check. Never.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, I just want to
Yeah.
go ahead and give you the floor again.
No, no. I like I said, I think the general premise of the idea is a good thing. It just there's so many caveats that need to be worked out, and it's a case of, do you believe that the only it becomes a factor of two things really. You know, the people who want to implement UBI, do they truly believe that the way that we operate financially in this current system just requires people to just have like a little bit of extra cash, right? Or is it a case of, well, we should be giving people extra cash, but there's some obvious issues with the economy as it
Mm-hmm.
currently is. Monopolization, for example, is causing things about to do with inflation. Like what causes inflation? Is it actually, well, it's actually is it's predatory pricing where people are just putting their prices up because they want to seek more profit,
Mm-hmm.
and our company's
And
going
that's
to use
another
you,
thing
right?
about UBI, making sure if it's successful, then you can't have predatory pricing. Just because people have an extra $1,000 a month doesn't mean everything has to go up by $1,000.
It's almost like that. I don't know if you ever watched Futurama. It's that skit where everyone that there's that one episode where everyone gets given a $300 in cash,
Uh-huh.
and then every single business in the episode ups their prices to $300.
Oh my, oh my
uh,
goodness.
but that's what I'm saying. So that like for me, I personally believe that the one really good thing out of UBI is it signifies to people that the floor should not be zero.
Mm-hmm.
In a social standpoint, it really makes it clear that we will not accept dire poverty as like the baseline for what people's livelihood should be. It normalizes the idea of people actually should have some money in their pocket at least.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the good things about
It
UBI.
would be amazing if I had an extra $1,000 a month at least. At least. And the whole idea of like, oh well, people don't want to go to work. People are not going to go to work at all. That's not true. That's not true. We are social beings. We're also gonna want to do something. Humans have worked since the dawn of time, whether it be hunter-gatherers or being a skilled worker or whatnot, and all work is skilled, by the way, I'm just saying.
Well, well, like I was, the video was pointing out. I think what UBI will do, because we're going a completely other direction right now. A lot of people are falling into a position where they have to take second or even third jobs to
Yeah.
cover their monthly bills. And what effectively UBI would do is it would free up a lot of the jobs in the market, because people won't have to work a second or even a third job if they're getting that extra £1,000 a month, $1,000 a month, sorry, and
Oh my
effectively
god, it would actually create jobs. Imagine that.
it would create jobs. But this comes back to this other thing: is the federal what does the Federal Reserve and what does the government believe is the right because right now with the Federal Reserve,
Uh-huh.
they've made it explicitly clear
Yeah.
that they want to reduce the amount of jobs or amount of employed people in the market, because they signify it as an inflationary to combat inflation, which goes completely against the whole idea that we want everyone employed. That just
Well,
proves that the current
uh-huh.
system, what it proves is that we have so many big players in the market that have control over basic utilities and basic pricing, is that when people have a lot more money, they
Mm.
just up the price because they can on certain goods.
Yeah.
And that's where the problem lies in the current
It was
state of
so
the
funny.
market.
During World War II, that was not an issue. It was the government literally saying, no, you can't price it that high, honey. You
Yeah.
can't do that. And everyone was okay with it. Everyone was okay with it. What the hell? But anyway, I want to move towards the conversation where the video mentioned like how far it goes. Like for me personally,
Right.
UBI, I go very far left on it. UBI is your like not starting from zero. It also includes social programs such as the Medicare for All, education, climate action, a job, guaranteed job, housing as a human right, all that. Like it includes that too, not just here's your income. And then, okay, people want to know where to tax it. Okay, don't tax the UBI, but you can tax the earned income. I would be okay with that, because you have your base. You have your base
Yeah.
right there. So it doesn't
Yeah.
really feel like a tax at that point.
Yeah.
So there's that. And the whole idea of, oh my God, they're not gonna want to go back to work. The video mentioned the people who didn't want to go back to work were going to school, having kids, generating in the economy. If you have kids, guess what? They're going to be taking part in the economy. You kind of want that, honey. You want educated people to get all these higher skilled jobs. I say that loosely because all work is skilled. I'm always going to say that throughout this series. You know me. That's a little bit of me. I want you to tell the audience how you see UBI, and do you think UBI should go as far as everyone being like, the family of the Simpsons? They literally use the same house, by the way. That video of the house that they showed, or the picture, looked just like the house from the Simpsons. But go ahead, sorry.
I think I think the problem lies is, we saw it in the pandemic, right? We saw it when essential jobs, which were always essential, became extremely essential, right? And for a very glimpse moments. There was a period in the job market where the actual employee had more sway than the employer, right?
Mhm.
And so people were finally able to actually get a decent raise in the market, or able to actually ask for more money than they would normally been able to ask for in the economic situation that we're in.
Mhm.
And it created a backlash from business owners, from people who had capital, because they didn't like it at all. And I think what UBI will do is it'll create that mini economic situation again, where workers will not have to accept $7.25 an hour,
Yeah.
because they know that they've got that base. They've got that base of even if it's
Because
just $1,000
technically they
a month.
don't need to be there. If they have the
No.
UBI and all the
Yeah.
other social help, they technically don't need to be there. You're right. It does
So
finally give the even playing field to the worker. And it did
yeah.
mention that in the video, and I really liked how it mentioned that, oh, what about all the hard jobs that no one wants to do, Oh, imagine that. They actually have leverage now.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Until actual automation takes place, and actually sort of does away with so many of these laborious intensive, body destroying jobs that, we want to be in a future where people don't have to pick corn in a field at 100, 105 degrees, and,
Yeah.
we don't, we want that for people, but the reality is that the current situation that we're in, there's nothing for people to fall back on, or to say, am I going to get the same amount of money or more per month, if I don't have this job anymore? And this is the point being made about the fact that we're entering into a future of anti-technological advancement, because it's attached to capital, it's attached to people's livelihoods. And so the hope from UBI, and I strongly agree. I think UBI, if we're basing it off the current, there's serious issues with the American welfare system, where poverty is 200%, or American poverty is deemed at $12,000 a month, a year, sorry, and that is still absolutely trash. That's absolutely nothing.
It's
Um,
literally trash. But yeah, UBI isn't, a fix all. And, like I said, it is just a part in what else that needs to follow, which is, everything else I've listed. It's just to ensure that, like, yeah, you're not going to be it doesn't mean that you're going to be rich or maybe well off, but at least it relieves the stress of what we currently are going through now. And then go ahead and wrap this up.
And I was going to say, it could also create the conditions where people can feel like they only need to work 4 days a week.
Yeah.
So you can create conditions where, you know what, I don't have to work 5, 6 days a week anymore. I can just work 4.
It gives room
I
for
can
that
actually,
childcare. It gives room to go back to school. It gives room to have a life,
yeah,
But yeah, so how we get UBI as a thing? I don't know. Overthrow the government. In a perfect world. But keep advocating, keep talking about this. That's all I can really say. All right, we're gonna move on to our next fun topic. We're doing 2 since we didn't do one last week. So here's our first one is going to be Thomas is leading it. It's a Am I the Asshole story. I love these. Go ahead, take it away, Thomas.
All right, so this is am I the asshole for evicting our tenants of 22 years? So it begins with, our son is 22 years old. When he was born, we bought a second home, always with the intention of gifting it to him when he was an adult. It's a modest home, 2-bedroom bungalow with a developed basement that has an additional room about 10 minutes from where we live. When we bought it, we listed it for rent, and a lovely couple started renting. They went on to have 6 children. They chose not to move and continue living in the 3-bedroom home with the kids. The dad works, the mom stays home. Important to note, we bought this home in 2000. Even with a 15-year mortgage, the mortgage is quite low and the rent not so much more than the mortgage. We've only raised the rent 4 times in the 22 years that they have lived there, and the rent is still well below average for our area. I did look it up. An average rent where our similar houses is between 2,000 and 2,600 a month.
So far it sounds like they're doing them a favor.
Yeah, so it's pretty good. Our renters have been paying 1,300 a month as current. When they started renting, we did talk to them. We did tell them this house was eventually for our son. We never actually expected to have the same renters for 22 years. Our son graduated university in
22
June
years later.
and has been staying with us since then. But he's a responsible young man, and we decided that Christmas would be a good time to gift him this home. At the beginning of September, we talked to our tenants and gave them a 2-month election notice, figuring we'd have November, December to get the house cleaned on any repairs done. Understandably, they are not happy. They have been posting all over social media about what bad people we are, kicking them out, how they can't afford to rent anything big enough for their family anymore. Their oldest kid, 19, even found my son on Facebook and sent him a horrible message. He had no idea we were planning to give this to him. Their Facebook posts have been shared in our local community groups, and everyone is commenting about what evil landlords we are.
Yeah.
Am I the asshole for
Yeah.
evicting long-term tenants so our son can move in?
Honey,
Oh, dear.
honey, do you own a mirror? Do you not hear yourself? Read it to yourself slowly. Wow. And this happens all the time, folks. Like,
Oh,
this
yeah.
happens all the time. And like, not gonna lie, I knew someone who kind of did that. Like,
Yeah.
so like my friend's like boyfriend at the time, her like his mom rented out a house and like she moved in and kicked out that family so she could move in. I mean, granted, she has kids of her own and like,
Yeah.
and like they weren't paying rent, but like they will just do that. Like they'll just swap. And I think that's still fucked up, Like playing with someone's housing like that, that's really fucked.
I think, I mean, like it's like you said, like just reread it, right? You had the money at the time in 2000 to essentially buy a second property when this family of 6 presumably did not have the money to put a down payment on the same said property.
Yeah.
And so they inevitably had to rent. And you said it yourself, your rent was 1,300 compared to the average of the area, which is 2,000, between 2,000 and 2,600. And so they had to stay because they could not
it's not
afford
like, oh my
2,000,
God,
2,600.
they ended up staying. They're so loyal. No, they weren't loyal. It's because they had to.
And he even said in the story, you price rent just above mortgage. So this family of 6 have not only paid off your 15-year mortgage and then some, they've effectively worked and paid off a second home for you. So then you can just evict them later on and give it to someone else in your family. I don't think landlords really encapsulate what you've done there. Like you've taken advantage of other people for your own benefit.
All I can say is, don't be trash. Don't be trash. It's not that hard. But okay, so moving on to our next one. Hocus Pocus fucking 2, y'all. Oh my God. It was amazing. I can't say much because this one over here hasn't seen it. But all I can say is the witches are back. Um, like literally, they had like an opening number. It was so cool. And then young Sanderson sisters was so cute and adorbs. And the new kids were adorbs. Like everything was adorbs. Yeah, it was definitely like nostalgic. That's all I can say because this one hasn't seen it. Did you seen the original though, right?
Yes. Oh yeah, I've seen the original.
You
Yeah.
won't be disappointed.
Okay.
You will not
That's
be
good.
disappointed. I was a little scared of it being disappointing, but it wasn't. So we're chilling.
Because I watched the live action of Pinocchio the other day, the one with Tom
Oh,
Hanks,
how was
and that
that?
was
I
pretty
don't really care
disappointing.
for like
That was,
Disney classic.
that was a bit disappointing. So I'm hoping Hocus Pocus is
Yeah. Oh no,
good.
Hocus Pocus is lit. You're gonna love it. It's so funny. All right, folks, and that concludes another episode of Let's Talk. I'm Greg.
And I'm Thomas.
Yes. All right.